Winter Wishes by J. Wilburn. Phelan Orlamine and Ravenine Ralatoris were the elves assigned to the eastern side of Bond Road from the cul-de-sac to the intersection of North 18th Avenue that Christmas Eve and early Christmas morning. "Hurry up with that lock, Faye," said Ravine. He looked over his shoulder at the elves across the street. "They're already halfway down the block." "Calm down, Rav," Faye said. Faye continued to pick the lock on the Dulcer family's house on the corner. All right, let me fix this spelling error there real quick. Okay, this is the first edit since I wrote this story yesterday. "We'll be done before anyone wakes up. That's all that matters." Rav took a deep breath. He adjusted his red hat over his orange hair. He stroked his thin beard to calm down. It was coming in patchy. Beards were more of a dwarf thing. Faye got the door popped open, and they slipped inside with their heavy sacks. Faye held down his green cap on his blonde hair from a gust of wind. He grunted under the weight of the presents. Everyone wonders how the big guy gets all the toys delivered in one night, while we struggle to get everything distributed by elven teams. "Get it all out of your system," Ruff said. "He'll give you the worst job if anyone hears you complaining when we get back." They put out a giant doll for the girl. It was huge, like creepy huge. Still, modern dolls were not half as disturbing as the stuff they gave to kids half a century ago. The boy got a Back to the Future playset. "Is that still a thing?" Faye asked. "I guess it's a nostalgia thing," Ruff said. That's always a big motivator this time of year. The locks on this street were old and stubborn, but they got them open. Let's say one after the other. Okay, one after the other. They distributed toys to each family's home. Frog Baby. "I find this one creepy too," Faye said. "Scooby-Doo playset. More nostalgia," Ruv pointed out. "A Lego pirate ship and a learning resources robot." "Okay," Faye said. "These are pretty cool." They finished off the street with a Crayola Build-A-Beast set and some kinetic sand. Faye clapped his hands together at the stop sign by North 18th Avenue. "See, we weren't that much longer on getting done." "We're not done," Ruv said. Faye made a show of looking around. "Are you hiding a house somewhere under your hat?" Ruv pointed up 18th. "We've got this side of North 18th, too." "What?" Faye turned in a full circle. "There aren't any houses here. It's all businesses. We don't do corporate. We're only residential. There's one house up the road between the Walmart and the Citgo." Faye's mouth dropped open. "Who would build a house there? It was built a long time ago. It was grandfathered into the rezoning." "That's a long walk to the Walmart." Ruv hoisted his sack and started along the shoulder of the road. "So we better get going." Cars buzzed past them, coughing up exhaust as they went. There weren't a lot of them because it was the night before Christmas after all. Let's say at least there weren't a lot of them, let's say, on the road, because it was the night before Christmas after all. All right. They finally reached the house. It could barely be seen from the road, with all the dead bushes and scrawny trees outside. The house was blue, but a lot of the paint was peeling off the wide spots of, let's say, rot. I think I put rust on here. That doesn't make any sense, unless the house is metal. Boards at the bottom of the house showed severe termite damage. Ruv opened the chain link gate, but Faye grabbed his shoulder. "Hold on. Who lives here? It looks abandoned. We should be calling protective services and not leaving presents." "Only one guy," Ruv said. "Axel Rimmer." "Is that... Wait, one guy? Is the kid living alone?" "No, Axel is 50. Well, 47 to be exact." "He's an adult, Ruv. We leave presents for kids. What are we doing here?" "The big guy has him on the good list and wants us to find a present he will like." Let's add something here. "Wants him to have a good Christmas after all these years. It's got 3 stars. next to it. Highest priority. Alright, let's have Faye say something. I know what 3 stars means. Ruv tried to enter the overgrown lot, but Faye grabbed him again. Let's say, and asked, since I got the same one talking twice in a row here. And asked, what do you mean by finding him a present? The presents are pre-made. We either have his gift or we don't. He was a late addition to the good list, Ruv said. We need to find something. I guess it's good we have a bunch of old school nostalgia, some old school, let's put a dash here, some old school nostalgic presents this year. Let's just get this over with. We need to do it right, Ruv said. The big guy is still angry about what happened with Twitchy last year. Faye shivered at the mention of the rogue elf's name. He did not want to come back and tell Santa that they had failed to deliver on this house. With him in the mood he was in after Twitchy. All right. Fine, let's do this right, but get it over with too. Okay. Ruv rolled his eyes, and they approached the uneven porch. The elves tripped over debris in the road. The porch boards were spongy and threatened to fall through even under their light weight. As Faye knelt to work on Mr. Rimmer's lock, he grumbled, I don't see how a full-grown human doesn't break through these boards every morning. He probably knows where to step. There was no lock. There was no knob. The door just swung open. They exchanged a look and entered. The house wasn't a horror show, but it was a bit of a mess and in ill repair. There were clearly some leaks and water damage that was old and new. Some empty cartons from frozen dinners showed the place wasn't abandoned. A Bluebird nightlight showed there was still electricity. Faye started digging through his bag. All I got are little kids' toys. This is a grown man. Ruv said, yeah, this is going to be a tough one. A loud snore rose from upstairs. It was definitely an old man snore. What are his hobbies? Ruv checked their paper. He used to be a biker before the accident. Faye checked his sack. Well, I don't have a bicycle. We could connect up with... No, not that kind of biker, Ruv said. He used to collect commemorative plates. Let's say with his mom. With his mom. When she was alive. Let me put another comma here. Split this sentence up. But he sold all those. Faye stopped, scratched his hairless chin, and looked around. And looked around the clutter. He said, the guy has no tree or stockings. It's not required, Ruv said. Faye rolled his eyes. I know that. But if I just got back on the good list, I'd set up a tree for sure. Ruv crossed the room, kicking an empty soda can as he went. All right. They don't mail out the good list. You just find out you're on it or off it when you wake up Christmas morning. Faye shook his head. It's cold in here. Maybe he would like it if we left coal. All right. Ruv, sorry. Changing the elves' names in the middle of the story. Ruv pointed in the corner and said, "Look, he has a tree. Just a little one." Ha. Very funny. What? Ruv asked. He held up the little metal pole with fake needles. Come on, let's spell some things here. With fake needles sticking out. Faye blinked several times. I thought that was a weed growing through the floor. That's sadder. And the Charlie Brown Christmas tree. Don't be rude. Help me figure out what to give him. Alright, now we'll dive back into what was already there. We should ask him. Faye said. Like, wake him up? You know that's against the rules. We can use the dust. The dust will keep him from remembering. Ruv shook his head. The dust is just for emergencies. Faye shrugged. This guy was a last-minute addition to the list. 3 stars. The Christmas after the incident with Twitchy. Alright, let me start from the beginning there and make sure I got it. Alright, Faye shrugged. This guy was a last-minute addition to the list. 3 stars. The Christmas after the incident with Twitchy. We can't be here once the sun comes up, either. It's kind of an emergency. Ruv nodded and said, okay, only a little dust. They climbed the stairs, listening to the creak of the steps, the groans of the house, and the wet snores of Axel Rimmer. His bedroom had no door, so they walked in where he was curled under a thin blanket in the fetal position. He looked more like a giant than a baby. A cold, snoring giant. Okay, let me fix that real quick. All right. Faye took out the pouch of dust. Only a little, Ruv repeated. Faye took a pinch, showed it to Ruv, and then blew it into Axel Rimmer's face on an inhale. On an inhale from the giant. The sprawling dust swirled around and then up both his nostrils. The man's breath caught. Ruv said, I hope he doesn't have apnea. A guy this size, he has to. If anything, let's put a comma there. If anything, we should be worried about alcohol and drug interactions. Ruv's eyes got wide and he checked the paper. He's clean now, straightened out. He is on some prescription meds, though. Axel sat up straight in the bed. Both elves let out surprised squeaks. Axel's eyes looked dull. His gray beard was smushed all up around his face. Let's say Ruv felt his own patchy beard with one hand and was a little jealous of Axel. All right. He looks 80, Faye said. Shh, Ruv said. Be nice. Just ask him. Faye cleared his throat and articulated each word. What do you want for... Axel let out a huge belch that was full of sparkles, but smelled like death. Faye groaned and covered his face with both hands. Ruv swatted him and said, Grow up. He started to ask Axel what he wanted again, but the next belch came with a stream of purple light. The energy blasted the elves against the wall. They struggled to get out of the flow of that purple force burp. Let me put that down. When they brushed themselves off, they saw Axel Rimmer floating around the ceiling in the magic dust trance. There must have been a breeze up there because he sort of spun in place before drifting into a wall and bumping off. Some crown molding cracked and plaster dust fell on the elves' hats. I told you, Ruv said. Get out of here, Faye said. You didn't know this was going to happen. Doesn't matter. We need to get him down. He'll come down when it wears off. We can't wait that long. I don't think we have a choice. Faye cleared his throat. Hey, up there, what do you want for Christmas? All right, let me put a question mark. Axel blinked slowly as he drifted across the ceiling. When I was a kid, I had a farm set. I remember. Faye stopped listening and dug through the sack. Farm set, farm set. Ruv tried to jump up and grab one of Axel's feet. He got hold of one sock and pulled it off, but didn't bring him down. Unless they didn't bring the big man. No, because they call Santa Claus the big man. They didn't bring the giant down. Okay. Axel spun around faster. That must have made him sick because he barfed up more purple energy and launched himself into the hall. Faye dug through Ruv's sack. Farm set, farm set. Ruv ran into the hall. Help me before he flies out a window or through a hole in the roof. No farm set. Faye ran after them. Ask him if he wants something else. Maybe a new house would be good. Axel tumbled down the stairs, still floating in the air with one sock on. The elves followed. Faye shouted, What else do you want? Axel came to rest on the floor. Let's say the ratty concert t-shirt he wore got hooked on a loose board. Alright, that'll be good. Kind of explaining why he's not floating around still. He wasn't floating, but still appeared sort of light, like you might could bump him back into the air if you weren't careful. I just want everyone to be happy, he said. Faye stopped by Axel's feet. Ruv tried to get the sock back on him carefully. Faye said, We can't fit world peace under a tree. Especially not that sad little Charlie Brown number you got over there in the corner. What else do you want? I don't want anything. I don't deserve anything. I want to make amends, but most of the people I wronged are long dead. I'm haunted by my unkindness. Both elves froze in place. Rub only had the sock half on. Fay wiped his eyes. I guess I see how he got back on the nice list. Everyone needs grace sometimes, Rub said. We can't fit that under the tree either, Fay said. What do we do for this guy? Rub scratched his fuzzy chin and finally asked, What would be the perfect Christmas for you right now, Axel? He spoke of Christmases in his youth. He talked about being poor and not getting much, but appreciating more. He spoke of his mistakes and his spiral into addiction. He talked about his criminal activity and how he finally got clean, but it was still new, raw, and uncomfortable. He just wanted to make people happy instead of causing so much pain. Ruv leaned over to Fay and whispered into his pointy ear. They both nodded. As Axel continued his story, the elves finished setting up. Let's say, when they turned around. They saw him floating around the ceiling. They spent much of the rest of the night trying to get him down. All right. Axel woke up with a headache. He was on the couch instead of in bed. For a long moment, he feared he had fallen off the wagon. He smelled his own breath. It wasn't great, but he hadn't been drinking, and he knew he hadn't scored any drugs. He felt a little better when he stood up. Axel froze in place, staring at all the presents around that tiny fake tree he found in the attic. There were dozens of brand new toys laying around. Did I steal all these? He rubbed his face, but then felt a note pinned to his collar. Axel stared at his front door in fear. Man, I need to get a lock on this place. He read the note a few times. It had directions to a place where he could donate the toys if he wanted. He was surprised to find he did want it. This was a weird Christmas, but he had lived a weird life. As Axel gathered the toys to take to the donation site, he thought about all the kids who would get something to play with even if they were late. Getting them. He also thought about a line from the strange note. He whispered it out loud to himself as he walked carefully over the good boards on his porch. Everyone needs a little grace sometimes. Over the following months of his recovery, Axel used that line a lot, and it helped. He never told anyone the details of that strange Christmas because he knew they would just think he was high. Okay. Let's add one more line here. Especially if he mentioned that every time he farted until after the new year, especially if he mentioned that every time he farted until after the new year, glitter floated up into the air and he could hear tiny bells ringing. Alright. Oh, I don't usually make myself laugh from a story. It's like laughing at your own joke, isn't it? Alright. But it was one of the best Christmases of his life. Oh, why do I think that's funny? That's so stupid. Okay. Oh, no. All right. I can't get tickled on stream. I'm the only one here. Oh, gosh. I'd be laughing at myself. All right. It was the first one he spent clean as an adult. Axel Rimmer stayed on the good list for the rest of his days. All right.